Hello, my friend. I'm glad you're here. Before we begin, take a small breath and let your thoughts loosen a little. What we are about to explore is not a method, not a set of rules, not a call to rebel. It is simply a clearer way of looking at life. A gentle shift in perspective that can make the road ahead look entirely different, even if nothing around you changes. Many people spend years doing everything they were told is right: work hard, stay disciplined, avoid trouble, save carefully, keep your head down, be grateful for what you have. These habits shape an obedient, responsible person, someone others praise for being stable and predictable. Yet, deep inside, a quiet fatigue grows. A thin sadness appears at the end of long days. And despite all the correctness, life does not move. There comes a moment when you sit alone, maybe at a coffee shop, maybe at your desk at night, and you suddenly wonder why the road feels so heavy. You look at your effort, your patience, your sacrifices, and you start noticing something uncomfortable. You're doing everything properly, but the results are faint, small, delayed, sometimes non-existent. It feels as if you are pouring water into a cup with a tiny crack. It never fills, no matter how steady your hand is. This is where reverse thinking quietly enters, not as a dramatic awakening, not as a loud protest, but as a small, honest question inside your mind. If I'm walking so carefully, why am I not arriving anywhere? The moment that question appears, your inner world shifts. You realize that life is not simply about moving. It is about moving in a direction that actually leads somewhere. People often misunderstand the idea of reverse thinking. They imagine it means breaking everything, going against everyone, doing the opposite just to stand out. But reverse thinking is none of that. It is not about being different for the sake of difference. It is about looking behind the curtain of common beliefs and seeing the hidden structure beneath. When most people ask, "How can I work harder?" a reverse thinker asks, "Does working harder solve this problem? Or does it just make the wrong road feel busier?" When most people ask, "What is the safe option?" a reverse thinker asks, "Is safety costing me my future?" When most people say, "That's how everyone does it," a reverse thinker wonders, has anyone questioned whether this everyone is getting good results? The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Perhaps you've noticed that the world is full of people who live very responsibly yet feel stuck. They follow the recipe given to them: school, job, savings, routine, politeness, predictability. But years later, they realize they were following a script designed for survival, not for growth, designed for order, not for possibility, designed for comfort, not for transformation. Reverse thinking is the moment you stop reading the script and start writing your own. It begins quietly. You observe your routine with a fresh mind. You see how automatic your life has become, how many things you do simply because the people before you did them. You start noticing how often you say should instead of want, how often you choose the familiar instead of the meaningful. And you realize that correctness, when repeated without awareness, becomes a small cage disguised as a responsible life. You don't need to break the cage dramatically. You only need to notice the door. Reverse thinking is that noticing. Think of a group of people rowing a boat. Everyone is rowing with all their strength, sweating, pushing, encouraging each other to go faster. But one person stops rowing. They stand up, look around, and see that the boat is heading toward a cliff, slowly, steadily, correctly. The others are not wrong. They are simply rowing without awareness. The one who stands and looks is the one who saves the journey. Awareness is the difference. Effort comes later. Many of the most surprising success stories in life start with this moment of awareness. You've probably seen people who weren't top students, didn't have the best background, didn't possess remarkable talent, yet they changed their lives. Not through luck, not through connections, but through clarity. They looked at what everyone was doing and quietly asked, if this path truly worked, wouldn't more people be thriving? While others focused on speed, they focused on direction. While others tried to fit in, they looked for space to stand out. While others fought for opportunities, they created their own. Reverse thinking is not difficult. What is difficult is allowing yourself to think differently in a world where similarity feels safe. You might be surrounded by people who worship stability. But stability, taken too far, becomes stagnation. You might hear advice about saving every coin, But money that never moves never grows. You might believe that hard work is everything. But hard work applied to the wrong system becomes exhaustion, not progress. The most important shift happens inside your mind. From, what should I follow? To, what actually works? And once that question gains strength, your view of the world changes. You begin to see that habits passed down to you may not match the future you want. That being good is not the same as being effective. That being safe is not the same as being fulfilled. Reverse thinking invites you to step back from automatic living and step into conscious living. The moment you allow yourself to question the road begins to answer. When you begin to see life with clearer eyes, something interesting happens. The world no longer looks fixed. It becomes flexible, almost adjustable, like a map you can redraw rather than a destiny you must obey. And this is where reverse thinking becomes more than a concept. It becomes a quiet form of freedom. You start noticing the patterns in people around you. Many are busy, constantly moving, constantly rushing, constantly trying to keep up with expectations that were never theirs to begin with. They work harder when things go wrong, not because hard work is the solution, but because hard work is familiar. Effort becomes a comfort zone. Exhaustion becomes proof that they are doing their best, even when their best leads nowhere new. Reverse thinking gently questions the link between effort and outcome. It whispers, what if the problem isn't your effort, but the direction you pour it into? And suddenly, what felt heavy becomes lighter. You realize you don't have to fight your way through life. You don't have to be constantly tired to deserve a better future. You don't need to earn success through suffering. You need clarity, not punishment. Awareness, not endless pushing. This shift does not happen overnight. It grows slowly, like a seed cracking open underground long before it breaks the surface. It begins with a small realization. You are allowed to choose a different path even if people around you don't understand it. Many great changes look strange in the beginning. Many breakthroughs look wrong before they look brilliant. Life becomes different when you stop asking, what are people doing? And start asking, why are they doing it? Because when the reason is weak, the result will always be weak. You start recognizing how many people live according to assumptions rather than knowledge. They assume a safe job equals a safe life. They assume loyalty to a company equals loyalty to themselves. They assume busy schedules equal meaningful progress. They assume less risk equals more security. But assumptions are just shadows. They disappear the moment you turn on the light. Reverse thinking turns on that light. You begin to see that many of the rules people follow are not rules at all. They are habits inherited from a world that no longer exists. The world your parents grew up in is not the world you are living in today. The economy is different. Technology is different. Opportunity is different. Yet the mindset many people use today is decades old. Designed for a slower time. A simpler time. A time where safe paths could truly lead to stable results. Today's world rewards clarity more than compliance. Creativity more than repetition. Depth more than volume. And people with reverse thinking instinctively adjust to this shift. They don't try to win by doing more, they win by seeing more. As your awareness grows, you start noticing examples everywhere. Someone quits a safe job to pursue something uncertain, and years later becomes far more fulfilled, stable, and valuable. Someone refuses to compete on price, chooses to compete on uniqueness, and suddenly their voice becomes unmistakable. Someone stops trying to appeal to everyone and instead speaks directly to a small group, and that small group becomes their entire foundation. Someone works less, but thinks better, and their results multiply rather than drain them. Reverse thinking teaches you that life is not a race. It's a design challenge. You don't have to outrun people. You only have to outthink the pattern. There is a moment, often quiet, when you look back at the life you've been living and realize how many choices were made by fear. Not intention. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of losing stability. Fear of failing. Fear of judgment. And you realize that fear can guide you for years without you even noticing. Reverse thinking is not about eliminating fear. It is about not letting fear choose your map. You begin to ask different questions. Not, what should I avoid? But, what is worth moving toward? Not, what is safe? But, what has meaning? Not, what do people expect from me? But, what do I expect from myself? These questions don't create chaos. They create alignment. Life does not become instantly easier, but it becomes clearer. And clarity is a kind of strength that does not exhaust you. You may begin to notice that when you think differently, your environment reacts. Some people resist the change in you. They may tell you you're unrealistic. They may warn you that stepping out of the familiar path is dangerous. But remember, most people fear new paths because they've only practiced old ones. Reverse thinking is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about proving to yourself that you are allowed to live consciously instead of mechanically. That you can choose what to keep from the past and what to leave behind. That you don't have to inherit a life, you can create one. The unexpected part is this. Once you allow your mind to turn in a new direction, you start seeing opportunities that were invisible before. Not because they weren't there, but because your old way of thinking filtered them out. Possibility expands every time your perspective expands. The world has always belonged to those who dare to question the obvious. Once your mind begins to shift, something even more subtle happens. You no longer measure life by how much you do, but by how deeply you understand what you are doing. You begin to see that effort without clarity is just a more sophisticated form of confusion. And you start questioning the idea that being busy is the same as being valuable. Many people live trapped in a cycle of activity. They wake up, rush through tasks, chase deadlines, respond to messages, handle problems, and collapse at the end of the day believing they have accomplished something, when in reality, they have only survived another round of the same loop. There is movement, but no progress. There is effort, but no elevation. There are tasks, but no transformation. Reverse thinking gently asks, is this the life you want to repeat for the next 30 years? You begin to realize that doing more is not the path to becoming more. Some of the most successful, fulfilled, and peaceful people you encounter are not the busiest, they are simply the most aligned. They act with intention, not habit. They build systems instead of stacking obligations. They choose carefully rather than say yes to everything. And their life expands because they refuse to dilute themselves. You start recognizing the difference between working hard and working true. Working hard drains you when you don't understand the purpose behind your actions. But working true energizes you, because each action leads you closer to something meaningful. Hard work without direction is a burden. Hard work with clarity is a strategy. This awareness also helps you see another common trap. The belief that growth comes from adding more to your life. More tasks, more goals, more commitments, more responsibilities. But real growth often comes from subtracting, removing what no longer serves you. Releasing what weighs you down. Saying no to what steals your energy quietly. Space is not emptiness. Space is capacity. Reverse thinking shifts your attention from accumulation to alignment. You start noticing what drains your spirit. The conversations that leave you tired. The relationships that take but never give. The habits that comfort you but also limit you. The tasks that impress others but weaken your connection to yourself. And little by little, you let them go, not because you are cold, but because you finally understand the cost of carrying things that do not move your life forward. And as you create space, you also create direction. You begin to attract the right people. People who respect growth, not drama. People who value ideas more than appearances. People who listen to understand, not to respond. People who are building, not judging. When your thinking changes, your environment slowly reshapes itself. Because people who walk with clarity naturally drift away from those who walk in circles. At the same time, you may discover a painful truth. Some people around you prefer the old version of you. The predictable you. The agreeable you. The one who didn't question anything. The one who didn't change. When you begin to evolve, they may call you strange, unrealistic, overconfident, or even selfish. But their resistance is not about you. It is about their fear of losing the comfort of who you used to be. Reverse thinking gives you the courage to let people misunderstand you temporarily so they can understand themselves eventually. And then, with time, something else awakens, a new sense of responsibility. Not the responsibility imposed by society. Not the responsibility of proving yourself. But the responsibility of choosing your own path with intention. You start looking at your talents, your energy, your time, your thoughts as resources. Resources that can be invested, multiplied, wasted, or transformed. You realize that a meaningful life is not built by chance. It is built by design. It is shaped by the questions you ask, the boundaries you draw, the decisions you commit to, and the things you refuse to chase anymore. You begin to understand that every choice is a vote for the person you want to become. Reverse thinking does not push you to gamble your future. It teaches you to re-evaluate the present. It reminds you that you cannot keep doing the same thing and expect a different life. It invites you to replace reaction with reflection, noise with clarity, fear with discernment. You start discovering leverage, the quiet multiplier of life. You see how one idea can change your income more than 100 extra hours of work. How one skill mastered deeply can open more doors than 5 skills learned shallowly. How one habit can reshape the structure of your daily life. How one understanding can save you years of wandering. Life becomes lighter not because your tasks disappear, but because your vision sharpens. Your mind stops stretching itself thin across too many directions and instead begins to deepen in one meaningful direction. And depth is what gives birth to excellence. Not talent, not luck, depth. Reverse thinking invites you to step away from being everywhere and finally begin to be somewhere. And when that clarity settles in you, even just a little, you start seeing the world differently. Opportunities stop looking like accidents and start looking like consequences. Challenges stop looking like obstacles and start looking like teachers. People stop looking like opponents and start looking like reflections of your own growth. Your life stops happening to you. Your life starts responding to you. That is the quiet power of thinking differently. There comes a point, quietly, where everything you've been learning begins to weave together. The doubts, the questions, the small awakenings, the shifts in perspective, they stop feeling like separate moments and start forming a new foundation. You start trusting your inner compass more than the noise around you. You begin to understand that thinking differently is not about creating distance from the world, but about creating closeness with yourself. And slowly, you realize something profound. Your life is not defined by what you have, or what you do, or what you achieve, but by the quality of the mind that navigates all of it. A clear mind turns ordinary days into meaningful ones. A scattered mind turns even the brightest opportunities into confusion. The world outside matters, but the world inside decides. Reverse thinking sharpens the world inside. You start to understand the patterns of your own psychology. You see your fears without letting them command you. You recognize your habits without letting them imprison you. You observe your emotions without drowning in them. You witness your thoughts without assuming they are truth. And with each small layer of awareness, you reclaim a little more of your freedom. You begin to see that life is not something to win, it is something to understand. You no longer rush to prove your worth. You no longer chase validation from people whose opinions were never meant to shape your identity. You no longer fear being different. You no longer avoid silence. You no longer apologize for seeking depth in a world obsessed with speed. Reverse thinking teaches you a quiet confidence, a confidence not built on achievement, but on clarity. It is the confidence of knowing that you are walking your own path, even if it is not the most common one. And something beautiful happens when you think like this. The future stops being a threat. It stops feeling heavy. It starts feeling like a landscape you can sculpt with patience. You stop wishing for certainty. You start building capacity. You realize that the people who thrive are not the ones who predict the future, but the ones who prepare their mind for anything the future may become. A clear mind adapts. A strong mind bends without breaking. A deep mind transforms obstacles into material for growth. You also begin to appreciate slowness, not laziness, but deliberate pace. You understand that rushing is often a way of avoiding yourself. Slowing down becomes a way of seeing more. You realize that the best decisions rarely come from haste. They come from stillness, from reflection, from the moments when you allow yourself to detach from the urgency of others. Reverse thinking brings you back to a place of groundedness. You don't need to match anyone's pace. You only need to match your purpose. And when your life aligns with your purpose, even imperfectly, you feel a kind of quiet joy. Not excitement, not adrenaline, not the temporary high of achievements, but a stable warmth, a calm clarity, a sense of direction that doesn't scream, doesn't rush, doesn't boast, it simply guides. You stop comparing timelines. You stop measuring yourself against someone else's journey. You stop waiting for approval. You stop trying to meet expectations that were never written for you. You understand, perhaps for the first time, that fulfillment comes not from having more, but from being more present with what you choose. With time, you begin to build boundaries, clear ones. Boundaries around your attention, your energy, your values, and your peace. You no longer give your time to things that do not nourish you. You no longer carry emotional burdens that are not yours. You no longer entertain conversations that weaken your awareness. You choose your battles with care. You choose your relationships with care. You choose yourself with care. Reverse thinking teaches you that boundaries are not walls, they are gates. Gates that you can open with intention and close with wisdom. And then, almost unexpectedly, the world starts to make more sense. You see how much pain comes from resistance. You see how much freedom comes from acceptance. Not the passive acceptance of giving up, but the conscious acceptance of not fighting what cannot be changed. You begin to work with life, not against it. You discover that the mind is not a prison, it is a tool. Not a storm, but a sky that storms pass through. Not an enemy, but a companion who needed guidance. Reverse thinking transforms you from the inside out. Slowly, steadily, naturally. One day, perhaps sooner than you expect, you wake up and realize that your life has become lighter. Your conversations have become richer. Your choices have become sharper. Your direction feels yours. You no longer live automatically. You live attentively. And that is the quiet triumph of thinking differently. Your life begins to feel like something you are co-creating, not something you are enduring. Because the moment you give yourself permission to question, to observe, to adjust, to think beyond the familiar, that is the moment your life opens. And from that opening, everything else begins.